I'm Jamon Holmgreen. I'm CTO, co-founder of InfiniteRed. I live near Portland, Oregon, in Washington State, actually, Southwest Washington State. Um, I lead a team of React Native developers and have been doing it for quite some time. And I'm also the host of React Native Radio. I do a lot of open source, and I live on 3 acres with my wife and 4 kids. I think I was kind of like a pretty early adopter when it came out. I saw sort of the demos, and I went in there and tried it out, and integrated with VS Code, and it was so good that I tweet about everything. I'm kind of an open book. I didn't tweet about it. I was like, this is too much of an advantage. I kind of want people not to know about it. And so I actually didn't tweet about it for like 6 months. I just started using it, and I told my team, start using this. Like literally, we're a fully distributed team. We got together, and I actually put a presentation. I was like, one of the slides was, use GitHub Copilot. Go install it right now and use it. Like, you don't believe me. I know you don't believe me. Like, I know you don't believe me that in my almost 30 years of doing code, like I started when I was 11. I've never seen anything like this. It's like, it literally doubles my productivity. So like, go try it out. And I want, I don't really, like, I don't generally, I'm CTO, but I don't generally say you have to do this thing. Usually it's more of a consensus based thing. This is about as close to you have to do this thing as I get.
And your developers, do you find that you're just like generally having more fun, just generally getting like more fulfillment out of the job?
I think that one of the frustrations I have with coding is when I run up against a wall and don't really kind of know the next thing I need to do, whether it's me like getting ADHD kind of distracted, or whether it's me literally not knowing what to do. So I had a situation where I was kind of writing a fairly complex set of logic. So I was building a lot of functions, like initially, like building function. I got to the end, and I had kind of like, the bubble had burst a little bit. Like I didn't have everything in context, didn't have everything in memory. I couldn't like pull it all together. And as I'm sitting there, like trying to pull it all back to my brain, with my prompt just sitting there, Copilot just pops in the next, like the function that pulls it all together. And I'm looking at like, okay, that's not quite right, but it's close enough that I can take it and run with it now. It pulls all of those things in. And that was a fun moment, because like, I didn't want to be like, oh, now I got to go back, rethink all this stuff, pull it all together, and then go and like code. I could just look at it and say, oh yeah. Okay. That's what I was trying to do. That's where I was going. And it brings that in and helps kind of like push the ball forward. I think that's fun. It's fun being productive.
So it sounds like, because there's that one comic where you see the developer kind of like going through all the different process and all the machinations in his brain. Then somebody comes over and interrupts him, and that bubble bursts.
Exactly.
And now they're having to start all over again. And I have that same challenge as well. So it sounds like you got to that end. You're like, oh, now I don't know what to do anymore. And Copilot was like, hey, I got you. Here's what I think you're looking for, and it was able to then prompt you the rest of the way.
It was amazing. It was like having a pair programmer with me, just kind of keeping me steered in the right direction. And that was pretty awesome.
How has that then in turn like helped you be able to deliver for your customers?
Well, I think that certainly, being efficient is a piece of being a consultancy, and you got to be able to deliver on things. I think beyond that, efficiency and productivity are obviously important, but I think beyond that, there's also just sort of like I've used Copilot to actually learn APIs that I don't know very well, because it knows them and I don't. So I prompt it, and then it gives me generally good information. Not always, like, you have, like any tool, you have to learn how to use it. But and I think that for our team, that's been a big piece of it as well, is just sort of like using it to not have to constantly go to Google, to Stack Overflow, to the documentation, but just prompt it, have it give you something, and you can kind of tell right away if it's going to work or not. And then, as a backup, go Google it, go to the documentation.
Right.
So it just kind of keeps you in that flow state. And I would say one of the bigger pieces for me personally, I have kind of mild ADHD, and I'm easily distracted. I jump on Twitter. I'm like, off doing something else. Slack distracts me, whatever. But Copilot, because it kind of prompts the next thing, has been a really good sort of like just kind of keeping me moving to the next thing, moving to the next thing, moving to the next thing. Because it's sort of like, hey, I think you need this next. And I'm like, no, that's not right. And I correct it. Or I'm like, oh yeah, that is what I want. And then I go that direction. So for me, like that's another piece of productivity too, is just not getting distracted.
And the last big question that I have is, what are some of the most common use cases that you see for Copilot? Where do you see yourself reaching for it most commonly?
I think in a lot of cases when you're creating functions, that do specific things, that's a very straightforward value proposition there. I think writing tests, it's amazing. It's amazing at writing tests, like way better than I would have expected. It's very good at like picking out APIs that you may not know off the top of your head. So just write a comment like, you know, in Node, for example, like just put in there like rename a file, and it will know what to require and what to pull in to rename a file. Those are the types of things where I feel like you get the most value out of it. I think for like React JSX, I think it is so far a little bit less useful, but probably going to be more useful as time goes on, as it gets better. So just building kind of like application stuff, UIs and whatnot. I think it'll get better at that. I think it's good at styling. I think it's good at any of those types of things. You can also do like animations, but a lot of it's like remembering APIs. I know one of the things, I do a lot of React Native, and one of the things that I always forget is like how to pop up an alert, because it's not just alert.alert, or it's not just alert, I guess, in the window. There's an alert.alert, and you have to kind of like give it a data structure. And I never remember, so I just write a comment that's like show an alert with this, and then Copilot always knows how to do it. It's done. Literally, I'm programming with plain English.